So with that, we'll go ahead and welcome everybody to the budget review meeting for Monday, March 6th. Appreciate everybody being here. I think we've kind of done introductions. Unless you want to be more formal with that, Andrew?
Andrea is looking, I know is going to say, for the record, could we just read off who's here? So Andrea, you want to go ahead and do that?
Thank you. Marion Florence, Scott Wordle, Kevin Wells, Lee Perry, Andrew Gruber, Mike Caldwell, Mike Newton, Bob Stevenson, Don Ramsey, and Jeff Silvestrini. Thank you.
Great. And I would just want to note, Mayor Caldwell, that Commissioner Perry is a new member of our budget committee, and this is his first budget committee meeting. And so, Commissioner, thanks for jumping in. We appreciate it.
We'll have to do the initiation the next time we see you in person.
Yeah, we'll see about that. Remember, I may be retired, but I do still carry a gun.
Commissioner, we run with this committee runs with the philosophy that short meetings make long friends. So we'll get you in and get you out.
Even better.
Okay, thank you and welcome. It's good to have you here. First up for action, we have approval of the minutes of January 12th, 2023 and acceptance of financial statements and the check registers. Has anybody had a chance to look at those?
I would move that we approve them as they've been presented to us.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, thank you. We have a first from Commissioner Stevenson, and was that Mike Newton?
It was, yep.
Okay. First and a second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Any opposed? Okay.
For the record, I could not unmute fast enough, but I was an aye, sorry.
Okay, that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. That'll bring us to number 3. Is there any public comment? Okay, hearing none, we will go to number 4, which is an action item. Recommend that the council approve an amendment to the fiscal year 23 Unified Planning Work Program.
Mayor, this is the item that we're, if it's okay with you, we'd want to switch the order of 4 and 5 because Wayne Bennion is not on with us yet. Okay.
Okay, great. We'll go to number 5 then. We'll come back to number 4. That as an action item, recommend that the council release the draft fiscal year 24 WFRC goals, budget, and Unified Planning Work Program for public comment.
Mayor, if it's okay with you, can I jump in on this one?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. So this is actually the most important, probably the most important budget committee meeting of the year. We have obviously follow an annual budget cycle, and this is the meeting where we present to you our proposed draft goals, work program, and budget for the next fiscal year. Okay. We sent you the materials. I assume you've had to varying degrees an opportunity to take a look at them. But here's what the way this process works. Every year, we as a group, well, the staff works on and then brings to you as a budget committee representing all of the communities and counties in our area. The proposed goals for the next fiscal year. We also prepare what's called the Unified Planning Work Program, which is a much more detailed statement, runs, the goals are 2 pages. The work program is 50 pages or something. We actually prepare that as a requirement of federal regulations. And then, of course, we also prepare the budget for next year. These are all draft items. We would talk about them with you, answer your questions, get any feedback you have. And then if any modifications are needed to any of those, we would make those prior to taking them to our full council meeting on March 27th, I think, Thursday, in about 2 weeks. And then we would do a shorter version of that with the council. The council would then release them for public comment. And then in May, we would come back and do final approval of the goals, work program, budget. Okay, that's the way the basic process works. All right. So what I propose to do here is team with Marion and go through these items. Give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen, please. Yes, okay. So here's our website, our homepage. I'm gonna go to the budget committee. You know, we put, obviously, we transparency is important. We put all of our information online, of course. And here is the agenda that we've been talking through. I'm gonna click on the item that we're talking about right here. I'll blow it up a little bit. Now, the memo that we've walked through talks about the goals, the work program, and a budget overview of expenditures and revenues. I'm just going to skip through that and come right here to the goals. First thing what I want to do is I'm going to just hit at a high level the draft goals, but then what I want to show you is a red line of how these draft goals compare to for 24 compared to what we have for 23, and just hit a few highlights. Okay. It will not surprise you, should not surprise you, that the goals that we have for next year are largely consistent with the goals that we have for this year, which reflects the continuity of the role that we play in our operations in the region. Okay. The first goal here, you see it on the screen: collaboratively advance the Wasatch Choice vision as a framework for integrating transportation, land use, and economic development to best address growth-related opportunities and challenges. Well, actually, this fiscal year, before next year starts in May, we're on track to do the update to and adopt the new regional transportation plan, sort of the updated, refreshed Wasatch Choice vision. That'll occur this year before we get into next year. The second overall goal is effectively administering our ongoing plans and programs. That includes developing the long-range transportation plan, the TIP, the short-range over 4-year transportation plans, all of our funding programs that we're allocating resources to communities, linking economic development opportunity with transportation in our economic development work. Those are our basically continue doing our existing programs effectively and efficiently. The third high-level goal is provide subject matter expertise to federal, state, and local officials and policymakers. I suppose all the work that we do with the Capitol falls under this goal. A lot of coordination on the federal side with our partners to put the infrastructure bill to good use here in Utah. Coordinating with local governments and transportation agencies on a safety action plan to implement the federal grant that we were just awarded, which Marion will talk about in a few moments. There's a lot of details in here also, our forecasting and our modeling, participating in regionally significant transportation and growth related projects and studies, etc. And then the fourth goal is more of an internal administrative goal, striving for organizational excellence. And it starts with what we're doing right now, ensuring that we have accountability and transparency to you, to our members in policymaking, and that we're using our resources prudently and efficiently, and having budget stability. We don't take for granted the fact that our resources are available to us. We know that they're taxpayer dollars. They have to be used with accountability and prudence and efficiency. And we aspire to do that all the time. And then also creating and maintaining a work environment that maximizes the health, happiness, and productivity of an excellent staff. Of course, the core of our work is the team that we have, the 30 or so people that we have that do a great job. And it is incredibly important to me as the executive director that they are happy and productive, that we treat them fairly, that we create a healthy work environment, and that they are highly productive and do great work, which they do. We have an amazing team here. Of course, staying in compliance with the applicable laws, et cetera, and then strike a good balance between telecommuting and off-site or on-site office work. We're all still adjusting to that a little. That was a very quick run through of the high-level goals. At any point during anything we're doing here, of course, please just jump in, speak up if you have a question, a comment. But what I want to do is just really quickly highlight what is different. And you might be wondering what's different from last year or current year to propose next year. And you can see this in the red line that's in front of you. A handful, these are in the first goal here. The changes are more sort of wordsmithing, that we're supporting local communities, supporting you to implement your plans for growth and development by helping you. We just changed this from align with the Wasatch Choice vision to implement their or your envisioned Wasatch Choice vision centers. So you can see just a slight modification to the wording, not really substantive changes here. Again, stop me at any point. On the second goal, effectively administer the ongoing plans and programs. You'll see here on number C, or letter C, it said for this year, for 23, adopt the Wasatch Choice Vision's Regional Transportation Plan. As I just noted, we plan to do that. We're scheduled to do that in May. So then next year, we restart the process, which means create a strategy looking ahead for the next 4 years. We've moved the unified plan to its own bullet point here. That's the unified transportation plan that takes our plans and all the others from around the state and integrates them all together into a cohesive whole. I'll note regional trail network planning. We were successful legislatively in having funding provided on an ongoing basis, working with UDOT, et cetera, for the Utah Trail Network, which means there's going to be permanent ongoing $45 million a year for paved trails, which is really awesome. A significant victory, I just want to say, as we provide a balance between road and transit and trail funding. And so working more on regional trail network planning and collaboration, not just with UDOT, but of course with all of you, is important. Updating the years, of course. Let's see. Station area planning, we're continuing along that work. And then I'll just say we refined our economic development bullet point here. I'm trying to move relatively quickly here and maybe not doing such a good job of that. But item 3, the subject matter expertise to federal, state, and local officials. Again, most of this is sort of wordsmithing, changing, still working with and coordinating with all of our partners at the federal level. The safety action plan, as I noted already, is a new thing that we're going to do based on receiving this federal award that we put for the whole region, a safety action plan together in coordination, again, as always, with you, the local communities. That will then enable our local communities, you all, to apply directly for transportation safety grants from the federal government. Aligning transportation, housing, economic development, air quality, and land use. And we did a little bit of updating of the projects that we would work on next year, as some have been completed and some others are coming online. And the last thing, the only thing really in the organizational excellence was just sort of continuing to evolve, just to more generically say about our balance between telecommuting and on-site office work, less of a direct reference to the pandemic, which fortunately continues to move further into the rearview mirror. Whew, okay, that's a run through of our goals. Comments, questions, thoughts, direction from any of you? Mr. Chair, to you first, of course.
Andrew, that was a good run through. I appreciate all the work on that. And those have been consistent in my 11 years with WFRC for the most part. So I appreciate that. Does anybody have any questions or concerns? Comments, not concerns necessarily. Okay.
If you don't mind indulging me, I just want to, Mayor Ramsey, you'd speak up. I don't need to urge you to, but Mayor Ramsey as our chair and Commissioner Stevenson as our vice chair. Can I just have you make sure that you're comfortable with these overall goals for the agency? As stated?
I'm very comfortable with them. I think they're fantastic. And I had them pulled up here in front of me as well from the agenda and had already also gone through them. And I think the red lines that are wordsmithing, I like those changes. I think they're simple, but as you said, not substantive, but I do think they matter. I think they're meaningful.
Yeah.
And I like the goals and it's almost hard to believe. Okay, great. We're going to pass the regional transportation plan in May. And then the next goal is to get started on the next 4 years looking. Yeah, there's never a break, but it's good. I think they look fantastic. I'm very supportive. Thank you.
Thanks. And, as among the fastest growing states in the nation, one of the ways that we continue to have good quality of life is that we always stay at this work. We're rethinking, we're planning ahead for the future. So, Commissioner,
hey, Andrew.
Vice Chair, yeah.
So I'm just looking here, your letterhead page that you use on your goals. And I'm looking down this column right along here with all the different, you got
Yeah,
A bus, you got a traffic light, you got pedestrians.
goals here, yeah.
I don't see a gondola on there anywhere.
I don't either.
I
Did
just-
you really say that?
I was just checking.
That plan hasn't been approved yet, Bob.
They just put one in your backyard, Bob.
We need one up here in Ogden. I'm getting tired of driving up.
We've had those conversations, but that's off topic. And so I will not accept the motion from you, Mr. Stevenson. Don, do you want to make a motion that we accept the council release the draft fiscal year 24 WFRC goals budget and unified work program?
Mayor, I'm sorry to interrupt. We haven't talked about the budget yet. So if you want to do them separately, that is obviously up to you, but we still need to give you a little bit on the Unified Planning Work Program and then actually give you some talk through the budget, please.
I was trying to get Bob off topic. So, but if you want to get back into budget, then we can do that.
And when the time comes, please feel free to turn to me, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. And I'll just say, Commissioner Perry, just for you, because you're new to the committee, and I think I've said this to you before, if there's any questions you have, please feel free. Also, the staff, we're all happy to talk offline about, more details, or if, we drop acronyms that you're not familiar with yet, we're happy to talk offline. Okay.
No problem.
Okay, thank you. Okay, then I mentioned already the Unified Planning Work Program, which is again a detailed compilation of all of the work that we expect and may work on next year. I am not inclined to go through that here, the details of that. I will note Wayne Bennion, who is now here on the meeting with us. Thank you, Wayne. Shepherds that through our office. Wayne, is there anything that you want to say to the budget committee members here about the work program?
No, except that feel free to ask any questions as you look over the summary of the work program that's in the meeting materials.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you, Wayne. Okay, with that, then let's turn to the budget. And Marion, as we discussed, I'm going to stop sharing so that you can share, and Marion's going to go through the majority of this. I want to just a little bit of budget context as Marion's bringing this up. This is a relatively routine budget. So just as an overview, so you're like, what do I need to think about here? There's actually not a lot of change happening in our budget this year. We again have a lot of consistency. Now that comment that I just made may be belied by the fact, as you look at these numbers, you say, not a lot of change. What the heck? I see 7, 13, 17, 13, 10 million. Like their numbers are all over the place. How can you say that there's not a lot of change? Well, what you will note is that the overwhelming majority of those large number changes come in the contractual line item. Okay, we're going to explain that, but we have new grants that come in, big projects. We take them in and they get reflected in the budget, and then we finish them and they drop out of the budget. We bring projects in and then we roll them to the next year. So there's a lot of variability that happens in that line item. It's all by design. we can explain all of it, and we'll talk about that. But I just, at the highest level, I wanted you to just sort of have that comfort of understanding that we have a relatively consistent budget with the exception of our contractual line item. I'll also note to you here that, of course, the largest item in our budget, typically, other than contractual, is our staff, our employees. And we have a great team, and we've had a great success in bringing in terrific new people when we need to. And so, I don't know, Marion, maybe I'll just I'll stop there and I'll turn to you. Marion's going to talk some about the expenditures, and then we'll also talk a little bit about the revenue side of the picture. So Marion, take it away.
Great, thank you so much. As Andrew noted, we can see here that there are several columns, and that in general, this is a pretty typical WFRC budget. And I've spent the last year understanding, as Andrew said, the sort of ups and downs in terms of where the budget is. But I've noted over the years, I did a deep dive into history to sort of orient myself. And it is very typical of this organization. So I just want to first orient you to the columns that I have here. The first is the actuals from FY22. So closing that out, you've already seen those numbers. And then the initial budget from this time last year is basically it's where we're accounting for new projects that we know are coming online and any ongoing that we can really confidently estimate. So it's primarily new funding, new projects for the next year. In October, the budget expands to include anything that's carried forward from the previous year that we haven't finished. And so we have a lot of ongoing programs that are over multiple years. And once we've closed out the previous year, then we can confidently bring those numbers into the October budget. So that's the conversation that we'll be having in a couple of months after we've finished FY23 and we know where we stand exactly on all of these programs. So right now, the budget for next year, this final column, like I said, is our anticipated new funding, new programs. The year-end estimate is just that, gives you a sense of generally where we think we'll be, kind of for informational purposes there. I have highlighted in a faint gray here the comparing this year to this time last year. And so you can see that when I say it's basically the same, it's actually 19% different, but it's just over $2 million. And as we'll see in the next section, that is basically the household travel survey coming to a close. That was a $2 million project. And then some recalibration of our station area planning, which is a 2 to 3 year project that we're doing.
And those are the things that are in the contractual line item as we.
Exactly. And they'll be hitting those contractual line. The salaries, we talk about this every year. What we've done at WFRC is look at the consumer price index and then also look at our partners and our region to see what sorts of COLA and merit raises are happening in the cities and counties around us. And so the proposal for this year is a 4% COLA and a 2% merit. And then we also have 2 new staff members that I can talk about a little bit more that are budgeted into there. One is a community and economic development staff member to do additional technical assistance to our communities. And then the other just recently was approved by the legislature. It's a local government administrator. And Andrew can give more details if we want to talk about that more. I can also talk to it. But it's an additional staff member at each of the AOGs that would be handling the smaller communities in our AOG. And so
just while we're on it, I'll add one sentence to that. This is something that the League of Cities and Towns let out on to help the small communities in our state that don't have a lot of staff, don't have a city manager, et cetera, fulfill their basic functions of government. And so we're going to have a staff person housed at WFRC specifically aimed at the communities in our area that do not have a city manager. So, you know, Councilmember Wardle, there's communities in Tualatin County that this would certainly apply to. There's some communities in Weber County to which this would certainly apply to. Candidly, we don't know exactly how that's going to work yet. We'll be coming back to you. And Commissioner Perry, for your purposes, that staff person that would be working on Box Elder County issues would be through Bragg, okay, as the AOG for that area.
yeah.
Okay.
And
that's new state funding for that.
The league identified 14 of those small communities and towns in our WFRC AOG.
Yep.
So I can pause on that salary line. On the contractual line, I think.
Wait, Marianne, I want to add 2 things on the salary and employee benefit.
Yeah, exactly. I
That's
want to pause
important
on
for
that
everybody.
one.
So you see that the line item in its entirety is proposed to go up by 9% from our budget from last year. Okay. And in the estimated 23, it's at 4.7. The reason that's lower than the budget is because, as Marianne said, we had some vacancies that weren't filled until towards the end of the year. And we actually, the first new position that Marion mentioned, community and economic development position, was funded by federal dollars, but we didn't fill it yet. And we're planning to fill that position next year. So what you see in that, 5.4, the 9% is bringing in those 2 new positions, and we're presuming them for the full year. And as Marion noted, the adjustments on merit and COLA. Now, the way that this works per our bylaws is that the budget committee and the council approve the overall budget. And then it's my job as executive director to actually do the salaries, et cetera, for the staff. You all most of you will remember last year, we did a whole salary survey and a very intensive process to make sure that we're aligned with market, made some adjustments there. So I just want to say this. In theory, I don't have to, per our bylaws, come to you and talk to you about what we're doing on salaries. But I always do, because it's really important, I think, that you all feel comfortable with what we're doing in terms of COLA merit and COLA increases. And so what you would technically do is approve the overall budget. But I just want to bounce off of you all the idea, as Marion said, that what we're aiming at, this isn't finalized yet, but what we're aiming at and budgeting for is a 4% merit and a 2% COLA.
The other way.
Sorry.
4% COLA, 2% merit.
Oh, yes, thank you. Thank you. That makes more sense, because we're still trying to catch up with the inflationary impact.
Exactly.
And again, we have polled the state and the counties and cities and where you all are at, and that seems to be basically in line. That 9% also includes all health insurance impacts.
Benefits, yeah.
Okay, so basically within that line, there's a bunch of things happening, and that line acts as a cap on the total spending that we have, but then we're able as an agency to navigate within that overall budget amount. So Marion, to your point, let's pause and see if anybody has any comments or questions on that.
I think it looks good, and I appreciate that I thought the same thing. I thought, wait, 4 and 2. Okay, I was glad that you switched it to 2 and 4. I thought, wow, are we doing it backwards here? In our city or what? So no, that's good. I think it looks good, and I would be remiss if I didn't pipe up and just say thank you to everyone who's on this call or the organizations that you are part of for your help in getting that shared administrator program and the funding for it across the finish line. That was a heavy lift that didn't come till the very last hour of the session.
Yeah.
And I just appreciate very much all of the work on that.
If I can just comment, Mayor Ramsey, in the league's support on this is critical, especially for the smaller communities. We had one of the mayors just throw his hands up the other day and indicate that he doesn't even know what to do. So Andrew, this is really not only needed, but it will aid people for years down the road. Thank you.
Good.
That was my experience as I had the chance to serve as president of the league and to go around and listen to so many communities. It was really evident. And not only to help manage day-to-day things, but the day-to-day things continue to compound. There are additional responsibilities and obligations that continue to be put upon local government, and some of them in rural areas still have to do some of those same new things. There's never an end to it. And it is more than most of our communities are able to handle. They just don't have staff to do it. And so anyway, this is a win. I think this is a big win for all of us. And I'm grateful that we have that staff member coming, and appreciate the program and all the help getting it there. Thanks.
Thanks. Okay, Marion, want to keep moving on to
Excellent.
other budget items?
Yeah, let's look at just a few more things here. I wanted to, of course, look at contractual, which, as Andrew noted earlier, is the main area that fluctuates over the budget as we account for new programs, ending programs. So I'm going to scroll down here to this section, which is our expenditures. You can see it's the same bottom line, and this is now by program instead of by what we call function or object. So here you can see that our CPG, our Consolidated Transportation Planning Grant, that program, which is developed in the Unified Planning Work Program, is is not growing very much at all. It's relatively the same as last year in terms of our funding sources, which is a bigger conversation, but for this conversation, and I'm willing to answer any questions on that. But in terms of where we see change,
And Marion, the
Yes.
Consolidated Transportation Planning Grant, just so you all get it, that's like our core work.
that's
The
yeah.
bulk of the planning work that we do, that's not sort of special things that may come here and there, our core work. So that's why you see more stability there.
Exactly. And so, as I said, looking at this over this past year, it's really interesting to me to see that most of our work is in that top line, and then also in the transportation and land use connection. And the other lines have a lot of narrative to them. There's a lot of other work that we're doing, and that actually is in the UPWP as well. But that is where you're going to see the fluctuation as we account for programs. So the household travel survey is anticipated to finish out this year. Bert Granberg is heading that up, and he's getting a lot of really great data. And he has let me know that he thinks that final invoice will come in by the end of the year. So you can see that drops 100%. And then I think we will have more work in that space, but that particular program is finishing. The other major changes are here towards the bottom. We had a really generous donation from the Intermountain Health towards community development activities. We have received all of that funding, so we will likely carry forward some of that funding to next year. But just in terms of the way this initial budget works, again, is that will drop to zero until I know what that number is. And so you can see we've received the full $500,000. And so we don't anticipate any new funding in that line for next year. So that drops to a zero until the October budget. On station area planning, that is a $5 million budget line from the GOEO, from the Office of Economic Opportunity. And we are splitting that funding with MAG to work on station area plans throughout both of our regions. And so again, this is an estimate. We have estimated that we will spend about $2.5 million of that. It may be more, maybe because of just the station areas that we're dealing with. But right now the estimate is that we will have $1 million of that in next year's budget. And those are the award funds. And then the programs, the actual work on that program will extend through FY25. Safe Streets for All is a new federal grant that we applied for and were granted in January. The actual grant agreement, we don't anticipate that until a couple of months from now. So the bulk of that expense will happen in the next fiscal year. So you can see that last year at this time, we did not have an anticipated revenue for that. We added it in October, and now we're seeing that most of that will happen in next year. So that's where that is 100% more than this time last year. The local government administrator that we just talked about is that last line going up 100% because it's brand new. And so those are the main 4 or 5 programs that we see fluctuation in. And so I'm happy to take any questions on that.
Marion, let me offer one note about the Transportation and Land Use Connection Program. You see there's a big numbers and they change over the years there. That's the program that we've created years ago where we're providing direct technical assistance to local communities on their challenging planning issues. It's been a great success in our region. You see how in the final budget in FY23, it's 4.5 million after it started in FY23 at 2.4 million. That's because we closed out the year and a bunch of projects were continuing and they moved from 22 into 23. We budgeted them in 23. We don't think we're going to do all of that 4.5 million in 23. So we're at about 3.4 now. At the end of the year, we'll close out. We'll come back to you in October and we'll likely move some of that FY23 final budget number into the FY24 budget as these projects move along. It's kind of like like a raccoon going through a python or something.
It's like a wave. It's more.
Yeah. At least that's what we used to say back in New York City when I was growing up. Okay, so
Okay.
yeah, I'm sorry, Marion, if I interrupted you. Is there anything else on this?
No, that was the main. I think that really shows the picture. I really like this section of the budget because it shows the projects that we're working on. It shows that they're relatively stable in terms of the work that we're doing.
Okay.
And
So let's
so,
pause, let's leave
Pause.
that, leave this for a moment, pause for a second, see if anybody has any comments or questions on any of this sort of these mainly contractual program change items. No?
okay.
Okay.
And people can come back to it, of course. It's all.
Hey, wait, Marion, I got one more thing. Sorry, go back up to the expenditure by function, because I just want to see if anybody had any questions on any of these other, we talked about salaries and employee benefits. We talked about contractual. There's some lines that move around here. I should note the footnotes that we provided have detail on all of this.
Exactly.
Marion, is there anything that you wanted to highlight, or does anybody have any questions about any of the items here?
Andrew, I got a quick question.
Yeah,
When we sold the building, down west, what?
Yep.
Where do those dollars sit? How's
Those,
that?
that's a great question. So what we do, this is our operating budget, and we also have our building fund. And so those are reflected in the, I need to have the actual budget packet
that's okay.
to show you, but Commissioner, I can show you we have 2 investment funds with public trust investment. And so our building fund sits separately. We don't touch it in any of these operating budgets. And so those are reflected in the bank reconciliations and in our balance sheet.
And that's about $1 million that's in that
Yes.
account from the sale of the building.
And I will say the interest rates have been really nice this past year. So that has grown nicely.
Right. While you're on it, we're in year 5 of the lease on this space that we're in now. We have a 10-year lease
I think we're going into year 5. Yeah.
going into year 5. So believe it or not, we're going to have to start thinking about this again and planning ahead. And there is the possibility of extending the lease on our current space or moving and buying something somewhere. So we're going to have to, it's not a conversation for today, but it's as we look ahead to the future, we'll have to have that
Yeah.
conversation again.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you can see if it's a significant, our rent is a significant expense.
Yep.
All right, I'm going to
Okay.
move down to the revenues piece just to finalize, sort of fill out the picture.
Yep.
The opposite side of the coin here. This has federal, state, and local, which is a typical way to present this kind of information. The major changes happen, and again, these are reflecting items that we've just talked about. So the decrease in our STP funds, we had a significant amount of the household travel survey was paid for the WFRC side with STP funds. And so that represents that going away for next year.
Marion, will you
then-
just shrink it just a tiny bit so we can see the whole screen? Okay.
Sure. Oh, can you not? Sorry.
I mean, we don't see the bottom.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I can. So there's everybody. Yeah.
One more.
Well, that's the total.
There it is. Now we
There
can
we
see.
go.
Okay.
Okay, so that total, that top part says federal. And so you can see also that the initial line, the second column to the final column is what I'm comparing in that percentage line. And so when you see the major changes, that again, the STP was the household travel survey. And here it's the station area planning, where we started with 2.5 million last year, and we anticipated spending 1.5 million of that this year. And then on the bottom line, we are down. Also, the dedicated project funds include a lot of different things, but a major part of that is also the household travel survey. Those are our partners that are working on that survey with us. We have 5 partners. And so those funds are considered local funds, and those are also making that line decrease. And then the final line there, the donation from IHC that we talked about.
Hey, I want to just note to everybody here, it's evident from the page. As a reminder, federal funds cover the lion's share of our budget.
Yes.
This is one of the reasons that we pay so close attention to what's happening with the federal infrastructure bill, because our funds flow out of that, the US DOT portion of that bill. You can see the Federal Highway Administration funds and FTA funds at the top. And then state sources, the ongoing money, we actually get relatively little money from the state, appropriated from the legislature. It's only that 290,000, which now is going to be increased by the 158,000. So I think that might actually surprise some people. A very small portion of our funding comes directly from the state legislature. And then the contributions that are made, I know, Marion, you're going to talk about this in a moment, the contributions that are made by the counties in our region, in our WFRC region, are that line that's towards the bottom, local
here.
contribution. So that $350,000, again, a quite modest slice of where we get our funding from. Mainly it's coming from federal sources.
Correct. And there is a detail typically, and I've followed Lovett's lead on this one. So we do keep a tally here of all of our voting members and the proposed contributions that follow the CPI. We do a 3-year average so that we're not just looking back 1 year. We're looking at 3 years. And so that average from the last 3 years is a 4.86. So that is the only percentage that I didn't round, because we like to be precise about that particular increase. And we did send out some information to counties prior to their budgeting year, because I know they're on calendar years. And so we'll be sending these out in July, and happy to chat with whoever we need to on that. But we're grateful for those contributions, which do show up here as local and help us with our matching and with those activities that we cannot use federal funds for. So that is the whole picture. I'm happy to answer any questions or turn it over to Wayne or Andrew.
Yeah, comments, questions? What do you think?
Thank you for all the hard work and the consistency. I think that's one of the most important things in the explanation. The transparency is wonderful.
Andrew, no, I think everything looks good as it has for all the years that we've been involved. One of the questions I would have, dealing with the funding that comes from the state, which isn't a whole lot of money, have we ever tried to get more funding, or is there a process with how they do that? What's your take on that? And does MAG basically work the same ways as we do?
Yeah, good question. Each of the 7 AOGs, associations of government in the state, gets a small appropriation, and has for a long time. And that's, if you look here, you can see right in the middle of the page there's this 140,000. So basically each of us have been getting $140,000 a year for a long time. I will tell you that used to be half of that used to be 70, and it used to be a one-time appropriation. And so several years ago, we successfully worked with the legislature to have that increased to 140,000 and made an ongoing appropriation through GOPB. Sometimes I've thought about this, and I'll say that getting that $140,000 as ongoing was among the hardest money I've ever had to work for in terms of like number of dollars received relative to the amount of work that went into it. Because appropriations are not always easy. And then it jumped to 290, where we got an extra 150, and this is true for MAG also, to your point, Commissioner. We got an extra $150,000 last year, again, to hire a staff person to do more local planning, and that's sort of working with our TLC program. So my basic answer to you is the AOGs are all treated roughly the same. We have worked to get increases. The local government advisor is an increase than for this year, the 158,000, which also, as Mayor Ramsey was noting, took a lot of work. And we've thought about going to the state for more, but it's been challenging just to even get those modest increases over time, but that is always a possibility.
So, on that, my question is, has there ever been in the past any type of discussion to where the federal funding would be cut off? Ever been a campaign situation or anything?
Yeah, there's been a lot of heat and light around that topic, but not a lot of substance. I mean, and if you go back, over the course of years, sometimes there's a fiscal cliff and the government's going to shut down. And then we have run the risk, well, wait a minute, there's not going to be any money available to do our operations, which is why, by the way, we always maintain roughly a 6-month balance to make sure that if the federal funding did get cut off, we wouldn't have to, close our doors and fire all of our people, because sometimes when there's those shutdowns, they're temporary, as you all probably remember. Also, the way that with our federal money coming, it's a blessing and a curse the way that it comes. Part of the blessing is that it comes out of these multi-year transportation infrastructure authorization bills. So we're right now in one of those, Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, which is a 5-year bill, which has stability over the course of the 5 years. But then when you come up on the end of those bills, there's always a lot of negotiation, and typically it takes a year or two just to get that negotiation done, and you end up in temporary extensions. And that creates a degree of uncertainty that the federal program would just be changed and the money wouldn't come. I will say that MPO funding has been pretty darn stable over the course of years and increased some in the IIJA. So we don't worry too much about that, but it's definitely something we pay attention to. In fact, our auditors have noted to us over time that there's a, I don't know what they frame it as, but it's like some degree of risk, because so much of our money comes from that source, that one bill that has to get adopted by Congress every 5 years. So that is a risk, and diversification is a helpful thing.
Thanks.
Okay.
Great comments. Anybody else have anything they'd like to add?
I will just throw out from my other world that it would have been nice if state agencies had come in front of budget committees with some of this kind of budget to show the decrease and increase. They don't usually do that. Legislative research, the fiscal analyst office does that more than the agencies do. So I appreciate what you've done here.
Good. Thank you, former legislator and now Commissioner Perry. We appreciate that.
It's just interesting to see your budget. I like the way it's set up. It's a little easier and cleaner to see than some of the budgets I dealt with when I had to deal with it in the legislature. So I like it.
Well, that means a lot to us. It's really important that you all understand and feel comfortable with it. So, well, I don't know that, Mr. Chair, that on the budget, the goals, work program and budget, I think that's all we've got for you today, other than you all taking action if you are ready to do so.
Okay, this is an action item. Is there a motion that the council release the draft fiscal year 24 WFRC goals, budget, and unified planning work program?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, because I just switched off your screen. I'm on a mobile device for a variety of reasons, I'll have to tell you, but I had to switch so I could read exactly what I want to move to. I move that the council release, this is number 5, right?
Correct.
Yeah, I move that the council release the draft fiscal year 24 WFRC goal, budget, and unified planning work programs for public comment.
I'll second that motion, Jeff Silverstream.
Okay, thank you. We have a first and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Bye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We really appreciate all of your interest and attention to this item.
Okay, we'll move back to number 4, which is recommend that the council approve an amendment to the fiscal year 23 Unified Planning Work Program.
And this one, we're going to kick to Wayne just to give a brief comment on this modest modification. Wayne.
Thank you. So you may be aware the paratransit service that UTA runs, that the Utah Transit Authority runs, is for people who are functionally unable to use the fixed route bus service due to physical, cognitive, or visual disabilities. And the UTA received a grant, it's an Areas of Persistent Poverty grant through the Federal Transit Administration to study ways to improve the customer experience and cost effectiveness of the existing paratransit service. So this amendment is to allow them to move forward on this study for which they received federal funds. And it's appropriate for the type of grant because the people that use the paratransit service are often below the poverty line. And I'll just also note that the study partners include VIA, the company that runs their microtransit or their on-demand service, the University of Utah, and the Center for Transportation and the Environment out of Georgia. And happy to answer any questions, but that's, and your materials outline the a few details or a few high-level elements of that flesh out that objective to improve the customer experience and cost effectiveness of the service. That's all I have.
All right, and this is an action item. Does anybody have any questions, or would somebody like to make a motion?
I'd go ahead and make a motion that we approve the recommend amendment to the fiscal 23 not unified planning work program.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you for that. We have a first and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That too passes unanimously. Thank you all very much for that. Up next, we have the executive director report. Andrew.
Recognizing that it is 10:55 and to keep you on schedule, I'll just say thank you very much for your participation in this process. And just as a reminder, Mayor Caldwell, the idea would be that again, at our council meeting on March 27th, we'd have a brief presentation about the goals, budget, and work program, and then put them out for public comment, and then bring them back in at our May meeting for approval. What we would do, March 23rd, Andrea is reminding me. Thank you, Andrea. What we'll do is we put them out for public comment, and then we'll schedule another budget committee meeting in May prior to that council meeting, so that we can talk with you and say, here's comments we got, here's changes what we think need to be made. So we would bring back to you any proposed modifications, if any, prior to the May meeting.
Mr. Chair, can I add one point of clarification?
Please do.
Just, and I apologize if Andrew mentioned this and I missed it, but just as a point of reference, so you'll be aware, the information, this information will be sent out to the county councils of governments.
Right.
So that all the elected officials in each county will be able to have access to this material and ask questions as well.
I mean, thank you. I had neglected to mention that, so thank you for doing so. So, Mr. Chair, that's all I've got for you, unless anybody has anything for us.
I would just add, I appreciate all the hard work and effort your team and your staff put into this. It's very clean, very transparent, and you've done everything that this group and others have asked. So thank you all very much for your dedication and effort.
Thanks, and I'll kick that to Marion and Kevin and Wayne, who have done a terrific job as usual putting this stuff together. So thanks, team. Okay.
Thank you, everybody. That will bring us to other business and adjournment.
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Best motion there is. Okay, first and second, all in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, have a great day, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thanks
Thank
all.
you.
Really
Thank
appreciate
you.
you.
Thank you.